Okay, this is another video on the whole Connecticut destroyed by design thing. Alright, I like to call this maybe more Malloy moments. It's about some of the things I've recently read in the news, and they all have to do with pretty much negative things for Connecticut, but all kind of stemming from the Malloy administration. And this time I brought some notes, little sketches of facts and things I wanted to make a point of. So let me get those 1 second here. Okay. Where should I start? Alright, this goes all the way back to August 1st, 2011. Alright, see, back when Malloy was running for governor, he said, we're going to have to make cuts and everything. I'm going to have to cut the governor's office. We just have too many people and too much money going around. And at that point, I believe as far back as early September, maybe even still to this day, I have yet to research it, but I don't know if there has been any real cuts in the governor's office. I mean, there's been cuts in like multiple offices in the executive branch, but they're mostly all clerical. Let's be honest, they're just little clerical workers. They aren't like any real, you know, major positions, any special experts or anything like that. And going here, the governor's office, all right, was 20 people underneath the former Governor Rell. All right, and now it's increased to 30 under Malloy. Salaries were up, get this, $661,429, or roughly 41% underneath the new Governor Malloy. All right, it says here that 3 members of this governor's office make actual more than the governor, which makes about $150,000 a year. All right, one of the largest branches he has running here, all right, is the secretary and also the Office of Policy and Management. All right, I guess Ben Barnes is the secretary, and he makes about $187,000 a year, which is $23,000 more than his predecessor. His predecessor had a doctorate's degree. On the other hand here, Mr. Barnes only has a master's degree. And normally, it's that if people who have a higher education tend to inherit a larger salary due to more experience and more knowledge. All right, the Office of Policy and Management supposedly, I believe, spends about $575,000 a year in salaries, which is up $36,000 more, all right, than what it was previously. The governor's department has no layoffs of yet, I believe. The lieutenant governor, no layoffs, and the treasurer, no layoffs of yet. All right, longevity bonuses. Many non-union employees in Connecticut, I believe it's about 3,599 employees, were given longevity bonuses. See, the idea is that if you stay working for the government for so long, because of your experience and your value to the government, they give you bonuses for your service. All right, and I believe that it was about $7 million that was divided in longevity bonuses recently, sometime in September, or were basically secured to be, you know, allocated later on throughout the years. All right, once again, it's kind of like, screw, you know, the private sector, let's give more money to the government employees. And I know there's a lot of hardworking people who have been there, and really throughout their life have really tried to make things better for the state. But once again, I mean, like $7 million could have went so many other ways. Also, we could talk a little bit about the taxation. When the taxes were raised on Connecticut, something I found out from one of these CPA websites was that taxes were increased roughly about 10 to 30% on people who are filing single, 50%, people who had a house, if you were making $50,000, your taxes were increased roughly 10 to 30%. If you were making $80,000 and were known as the head of household, once again, the same 10 to 30%. And if you're joint, about $100,000, same idea. Your taxes were increased roughly 10 to 30% from what they were previously. This is your Connecticut income tax. But yet, if you're wealthy and singly filing, if you make over $500,000 a year, or if you're jointly filing and make over $1 million a year, your taxes were only increased in that bracket roughly 3% up from what they were previously. So now the middle class is once again having to pay the largest portion of increases on taxes, while the wealthy, which goes back to my point in the little conspiracy, Connecticut destroyed by design, trying to turn Connecticut into a wealthy vacation village. You know, get my point? Here's some other interesting things. Dan Malloy wanted to have about $10 million in his disposal to help promote tourism in Connecticut by having the money being allocated to commercialize and assist several casinos in Connecticut. Now, I look at it and I'm like saying to myself, well, a lot of those casinos, I think all of them actually, are on Indian reservation land. That's basically a sovereign country. That's not Connecticut. I understand people commuting to these locations might spend some time in other Connecticut towns and whatnot, and therefore spend some money to help Connecticut. But a lot of the money that goes to these Indian sovereign land is going to stay on this Indian sovereign land. All right, those are Indian businesses. Those are not, you know, well, excuse me, I should probably say Native American, but a lot of Native Americans prefer to actually be called Native American Indians or just Indians, because Native American is a very vague term that describes people from all over the Americas. But, you know, we're spending, or he wanted to spend rather, $10 million, I don't believe he got it, to help promote casinos, which once again has its moral aspects, but let's just be honest here, a lot of that money that's going to these casinos isn't Connecticut money, isn't going to really flow through the economy as if it was something else with Connecticut tourism. Recently, 2 historic ferries were threatened to be closed, and right now I believe that they will be open for a few more years at least. One of them was in Rocky Hill, which goes all the way back to 1655, this ferry. All right, and the other one was crossed over in Chester, somewhere in the Connecticut River, I believe. And that one has been open for many, many years as well. And in order to save roughly something like, I think it was like, you know, one example, like $56,000 a year or something like that in a wage, like they wanted to get rid of it. And at the same time, they wanted to blow $10 million on supporting an Indian casino. Yet you have people from Florida, Massachusetts, and everywhere going to see these historic sites. You know, people go to like the Connecticut River, go to Essex, see the old trains and stuff like that. Those are Connecticut landmarks, you know, something that goes back on our history of what we were as Connecticut. And also, it does develop some good tourism money. Casinos, on the other hand, it's not something I really believe is that effective because so much of the money goes back to help support the casino. Also, are we bribing companies, Malloy, you know, to keep their workers here? He wanted to spend, I believe he got it passed too, $20 million, all right, to UBS, the foreign bank, which had its, you know, station up there in Stamford, his hometown. He's probably trying to save face, but he was going to give them a forgivable loan. I don't know what that really means. I have to look into that, but this is just something I just read not too long ago. All right, for 2,000 in jobs. They have about 3,500 employees, and if they keep about 2,000 of them, he's going to let them have this $20 million, and they only need to keep them for 5 years. After 5 years, they can get rid of them. He doesn't care, really, you know. But, you know, after that, he's probably not going to be governor anymore, right? What does he care? You know, so the whole thing is that if they keep the workers for 5 years, they get this $20 million to play around, all right? Also, he wanted to have $120 million to be thrown around to companies like Cigna, ESPN, and Ticket Network to keep their workers as well. All right, so once again, we're bribing companies with taxpayer dollars, increasing our debt, instead of just allowing the market to make more money and then take the money out as we can, you know, to help support the government. All right, it's strange, these Malloy moments, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know if, like, you know, the administration is lost, or if they're actually just trying to destroy the country, or at least the state of Connecticut. I mean, it's just silly stuff. And I could keep on going with other stuff I've been reading and hearing about, but I mean, Connecticut's not really doing too well. We're blowing money on silly things, and things that we should be addressing, we just don't really care about. Alright, so that's all I have to say.